Sekeres Price for Monday, May 20th, 2024. Happy Victoria Day, everybody. We're coming to you live from the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee here at the iconic Wall Center, downtown Vancouver. If you're coming to an event downtown, make it a staycation. Call the Wall, 604-331-1000. Ask for the Sekeres Price rates. Some blackout dates apply. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price. Grady Sass hitting switches and conducting things with Sean Chessman. We got a big show coming up. That's all brought to you by Applewood Auto Group.
Applewood Nissan in Richmond has the Nissan Rogue. If you haven't taken one of these for a test drive yet, go check it out. It really can do everything that BC needs it to do. At least one right now at 2.99% for 24 months. Go down to Applewood Nissan, the Richmond Auto Mall. It's all good at Applewood.
Poll question today. How are you feeling about the Canucks in Game 7? Confident? Nervous? You can vote. That's Sekeres Price on Twitter or X and YouTube. And look, if you're feeling confident today, more power to you. No Demko, no Boeser. Coming off the worst game of the series for Vancouver, if not the worst game of the postseason, coming off the best game of the series for the Edmonton Oilers. The Canucks have been shut out in their last two Game 7s, so I voted nervous. There's a whole lot of, current happenings and history that has me nervous for the Vancouver Canucks tonight.
Bewildered.
Well, I'm not sure I'd say bewildered.
I'm bewildered.
You're bewildered. By what?
What to expect? How to predict what happens in one of these games. If you want, again, exhibit A of no momentum in the playoffs, go no further than this series, because you think it's going to zig, it will zag.
Yeah.
So the Canucks had their best game of the entire playoffs in Game 5, followed by their worst game in Game 6, and the Edmonton Oilers might be able to say the exact opposite. So I have no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
I'm willing to view in my brain the Cinderella story of them rising to the occasion with all of the drama of Boeser and everything like that. I'm willing to say that the race has been run. They emptied the tank.
Where did no momentum in the playoffs come from?
I think from incidents like this, where you think
just volley and win one game apiece.
Well, and you think you figured it out. You think you just played such a good game against the team. You're like, okay, we're going now. And then you come out the next game, they take it to you, and you're like, what the hell? And it's because that every game in 82 games, not everybody gets up for every game. It's just human nature. You don't get that in the playoffs. Everybody knows the gravitas of every game. Everybody tries to get up for every game. Not everybody's successful, but everybody tries.
Yeah.
And so I think you get way more coin flips.
Canucks haven't lost consecutive games since late March. More on that in a second. That said, so that's a good omen for this evening. That said, the lack of killer instinct. We've seen that several times now in this postseason. The Nashville series, the Edmonton series.
Rarely extending leads.
Yeah. Well, or, Game 6, one of their worst efforts of the postseason, I would say, right?
Yeah.
Like, not many times that you've looked at the Canucks in the postseason and said, the effort was a little lacking there, but I think that applied on Saturday night as you watch Edmonton just, steamroll as the game went along. Anyways, let's get to our top story, brought to you by Mr. Lube. 223 days ago, the Vancouver Canucks opened this season with an 8-1 victory on home ice against the Edmonton Oilers on opening night of the NHL regular season. Patrick Demko made 26 saves. Brock Boeser scored 4 goals. Neither of them will be available for Game 7 this evening. The longest tenured Canuck, Brock Boeser, blood clot in his leg, discovered after Game 6 on Saturday. He's to miss this game and the rest of the playoffs. The good news, it's not a career or life-threatening situation. He is on blood thinner medication. It is, however, an example of Canuck luck.
It is a shocker, and it feels like the rug has been pulled out from underneath the Vancouver Canucks going into the biggest game of their season. And of all the guys, you wouldn't hope this on anybody, but of all the guys, the guy that has been through maybe the most tortuous last couple of years personally on this roster with the death of his father and the long sickness and everything. It was, I mean, for him now to battle his own health demons. And again, the signs are good for him. It just doesn't seem fair.
Tied for the team lead with 12 points in this postseason. He leads the Canucks with 7 goals in this postseason. He is the second most used forward after JT Miller, playing 20 minutes and 18 seconds a night. He is second on the team on shots on goal in this postseason with 27, just behind JT Miller's 28. Oh, and he's shooting 26% in the playoffs as well.
He's been pretty clutch.
A huge loss.
Need a tire change or tire service? Mr. Lube provides no appointment tire service and sales. Drop by any time for tire rotation, repair, and balancing. And that's for all makes and models, even EVs. 16 locations in the Lower Mainland for one near you. Go to mrlube.com. There is something interesting to point out here. Mm-hmm. Great thread from Marc-Antoine Gaudin from Radio-Canada on blood clots in the National Hockey League.
Yeah. It's been a thing, huh?
It has been a thing. He was put onto it in 2014 after Pascal Dupuis' diagnosis. Normal occurrence is about 1 in 10,000. And as Marc-Antoine Gaudin points out, seeing as we've had almost one a year in the NHL for the past 15 years, it appears to be that for National Hockey League players, it's more like 1 in 700 or 800. Timonen, Vokun, Fleischmann, Ortmeyer, McCormick, Dupuis, Posma, Cervenka, Vasilevsky, Silverberg, Stamkos, Kreider, among others, have all battled this. The reason? No one knows for sure, of course, but Jed Ortmeyer, whose career came to an end with it, had this, and it was backed up by a doctor and researcher on this.
Is it skating? The act of skating?
No, it's this. And Ortmeyer just opined this, but there's some science that backed it up. I think it's got a lot to do with the travel and the lifestyle. After games, we're dehydrated. We get on a plane. We don't move for 2 hours, and there's the air pressure. It's an ideal situation for blood clots to develop. And quote, the doctor that agreed with him also said that just the impact, being hit by pucks, blocking shots, all that sort of stuff probably doesn't help. But pretty good theory by Ortmeyer, and there might be some science behind it as well. So
let's hear from Tyler Myers of the Vancouver Canucks on missing Brock Boeser for this pivotal Game 7.
Always tough to hear. He's obviously bummed, but he's he'll be fine, and guys just have to step up. It's part of the playoffs. You're going to lose guys at different times for different reasons, and it's an opportunity. We have to look at it like an opportunity for other guys to step up and step into a role and be excited for it.
Is it that simple? When he was your leading scorer, I mean, this team's been resilient and battled through a lot of this during these playoffs. Does it make it that much harder?
Brock's been a great player for us. We would love to have him in the lineup for sure. But hits like this, you have to be ready for. You have to expect it at unexpected times. And like I said, the next guy coming in should be that much more excited to be a difference maker stepping on the ice. And that's how you have to look at it.
Well, Ilya Mikheyev and Sam Lafferty will draw into this hockey game for Brock Boeser and Vasily Podkolzin, and what a story it would be if Mikheyev were to score his first goal since March 13th in Brock Boeser's stead. Rick Tocchet also talking about the attitude of this club all season when faced with the loss of a player. Here's what he had to say.
It's not a one-man show. You can't think you got to do it all yourself. You do that, that's when you get in trouble. So the one good thing about our team is we've stayed pretty good this year with our system and foundation. We got off kilter. Obviously, last game we weren't at our best. But the one thing we've always leaned on when we've not had a bad game is come back to your foundation. And that's really got to lean on. And you got to play uncomfortable. There's certain things that you've probably not that type of player. You might have to be a little uncomfortable in doing that. If you're a guy that doesn't really block many shots, you might have to block some shots tonight. I think you got to play out of character sometimes.
Here, Coach. Everyone's got to make every sacrifice imaginable for this game.
Optional practice yesterday. Several optioned out, but it was pretty well attended. But the lines were in a blender because there's key guys that weren't there. No skate today. So the canvas is pretty open at this point as to what Rick Tocchet wants to do with this line with Boeser gone.
Well, I think we're looking at Patterson there.
That seems to be what most people want to see.
Yeah. Lafferty incidentally hasn't scored since April 13th. So March 13th for McCabe, April 13th for Lafferty. Maybe 13 is lucky.
If Patterson moves up, though, who's the fourth center?
There is no fourth center. You're leaning on all your stars here tonight. Dakota Joshua added that he didn't want the group doesn't want to let Brock down. Longest tenured Canuck, has mentioned, a very popular player in that room. Grady, you think maybe Brock on the siren tonight?
Well, all things considered, as long as it's good for his health, that he's able to do that, that it doesn't rush too much blood. And listen, I'm not a doctor by any means, but I mentioned that on Twitter, and I've had a couple people reply with that.
Yeah. I mean, if he's capable, I mean, I think he has more of an effect than Alex Edler or any other ex-Canuck that you can bring.
Yeah.
Right.
Somebody's getting the Jimmy Kimmel treatment.
If he's able to.
No time for so-and-so. Boeser's coming in. I think you go to that.
And not just for the fans, but for his teammates as well.
Exactly.
They look up and they see him up there.
Exactly.
Give him an extra jolt.
As mentioned, the Canucks resiliency has been part of the program this year under Rick Tocchet. Haven't lost consecutive games since March 25th and March 28th. Both of those were at home. The first one to LA, the second to Dallas. Casey DeSmith played both of those games, and you may remember that was during the period where Casey DeSmith was playing every night and really wasn't accustomed to playing every night in the Thatcher Demko absence. They've played 21 games since then, and every time they have lost a hockey game, they have bounced back with a victory. Here's Coach Tocchet on how this team is not a one-man show.
Yeah, it's been a big part. I think obviously had a great year for us. Big part of the team. He scored some big goals for us, so it's a tough one. But next man up, right? That's the way you got to approach it, like we have all year.
And Carson Soucy as well, speaking on this topic. He's been impressed with the fight in this club all season long. Take a listen.
Yeah, this group, we're fighters. Just kind of right from training camp, we came in with a mindset that this year was going to be different. We've kind of showed that through the year that the ups and downs, we're going to come back the next game ready to play. I think it's going to be a really good game tomorrow.
For a team that led the Pacific Division from tip to tail, it's almost weird that they seemingly enjoy being the underdog, counted out. So like you would have thought they were a team.
Yeah, and as we talked about, there wasn't a whole lot of that card being played during the regular season.
No, they stayed on top, and they just.
And I think that's got to be by design. Like, we didn't hear Coach Tocchet and players talking about everybody doubted us. The us versus the world card. Take a shot at your critics, real or perceived. They didn't do a lot of that in the regular season.
They didn't really need to.
Well, to me, it also speaks to like a quiet confidence that you don't have to take on every slight.
But how bad would that look? You're the top team, and remember, they were President's Trophy leaders for a long part of the season.
They had a shot.
How weird would it have been if they were there in the President's Trophy front seat and going, "Oh, no one liked us"? Well, you're there. Like, it's just a bad look. So they kept that to themselves. They can sort of play it now. The big question is going to be, they've shown the ability to bounce back, as you chronicled. That's not been with Artur Shilovs. So Shilovs, we haven't seen him. How does he look?
What do you mean?
Bouncing back.
Well, he's bounced back and won some games for them here.
No, I know, but not after that kind of a loss. It's one thing to take a narrow loss and be able to go back to the room and say, hey, we were real close, kept us in it, blah, blah, blah. When you're shellacked, what do?
Right.
How do you have the confidence to say that's a one-off, I'm flushing it?
Mm-hmm.
First time he's being mentally tested.
Yeah. It was game 2, the 4-1 loss to Nashville, of course. That was not an Archer's Shelov's start. That was a Casey DeSmith start after the injury to Thatcher Demko. So, no, you're right. Shelov's hasn't been as much a part of the bouncing back, at least not bouncing back after multi-goal losses. The Canucks had played all those one-goal games prior to.
You can talk yourself into all sorts of bounce back when you lose by 1. Like, you're right there. You're in the game until the 60th minute, right? So you can say that after 5-1 and a drubbing, boy, we're gonna see this team tested.
Well, here's something that I think we can all agree needs to prove. The Canucks put just 15 shots on Stuart Skinner in Game 6. This was a emotionally, psychologically, whatever you want to say, fragile goaltender after being yanked earlier in the series. You could hear the doubt when he spoke. And 9 of 12 playoff games now, the shot totals for the Vancouver Canucks have been 21 or fewer. Of course, all the way down to 12 in that Game 3 victory, somehow a victory against the Nashville Predators with just 12 shots on goal. They're averaging 21.1 in the postseason. That is 3.7 fewer than the next worst team in Boston. Previously Boston, they're out now. And they're allowing 27 shots per game. So I think you have to get more pucks on net tonight. And here's JT Miller speaking to that, recognizing that they're not a high volume shot team, but they still have to do better than what we saw in Game 6 Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, we're not a high volume shot team. I think we've learned that in general. So it's not a huge panic for us. I just think when we're on our game, we get more looks and we shoot the puck. It's not like we're going to look to cross the blue line and start shooting every single puck on net. So obviously we need to be better. We know that, and good news is we can turn the page and it's one game to do it and try to earn it.
They've got to unlock their Game 5 mentality. Like, it's not so much about just deciding, we're going to shoot. It's about what led you to the opportunity to shoot. And the way they played in Game 5 gave them opportunities to shoot, so they shot. It wasn't just, as he talks about there in that clip, it's not about just saying, okay, we're just going to shoot. You have to play better so that you give yourself the opportunity to shoot. They did that in Game 5, and they had their most successful game of the entire postseason in shooting the puck. Never mind that they actually, scored goals and looked good doing it. They shot the puck because they could. So they need to get on the front foot, play a better game so that those opportunities present themselves.
And in games this postseason against the Oilers, when Skinner started, they're only averaging 18 a game. That is nowhere near enough for a guy that looks very shaky at times.
Bit of a different show here today with the early start time with the Victoria Day holiday. And of course, just the one big story. So we're going to come back here in a second. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Vancouver Canucks stars and what they have to do tonight. We're going to talk about the physicality of this series and also take you through some Game 7 history for this Canucks club and some of the particulars. That's all coming up. We've all heard of the overdose crisis, also known as the toxic drug crisis.
But did you know that it affects men disproportionately?
Last year, 78% of people dying here in BC were men, and the majority were 30 to 59 years old.
It's not easy to struggle with addiction, and the stigma around it can make it harder for people to reach out for help.
There is help and support. Every journey is different, and the thing that helps one person, it might not be the same for everyone.
So when someone does reach out, be compassionate and have open, non-judgmental conversations.
We here at Sekeres Price want to be part of the solution.
If you or someone you care about is struggling, you can find supports and services near you at helpstartshere.gov.bc.ca. And you can also watch powerful real-life stories of recovery on Help Starts Here website. Hey, you. No, not you. You. Are you an owner-operator? You have a fleet of trucks or cars? Well, CalPro Plus might be the dedicated tire program just for you.
Free program includes exclusive deals and savings, price match guarantee, flexible financing, and preferred pricing on everything you drive.
Also, you get a dedicated member support line. That means that you can get questions answered. Also, they'll source and recommend the right tire for you, your application, and your budget.
Cal Tire's network of 260 plus stores are here to help so you can focus on the road ahead. Sign up for free at calproplus.com. Northlands Golf Course. Download the free app and book tee times with a touch of your thumb. And while you're on course, open the app for hole-by-hole GPS and track your score. 6 to 90-day reservations. Jump the queue. Lock in your date for $10 per player booking fee. Limited daily availability. Check it all out. golfnorthlands.com. And back at the Nation Network studio, let's get to the menu. It's going to be this segment with Blake and I. Jeff Paterson is going to join us live, and then we'll wrap up the show. A shorter show today. We realize your routines are a little different with the Victoria Day holiday. And, of course, a 6 p.m. start to Game 7. The menu brought to you by Greta. We have had some extraordinary times at Greta here over the last month. Thank you to Mike and Chantel and Flora and Triana and the whole crew there at Dalton who have treated us so warmly. Had a blast on Saturday. 50 West Cordova, one of the great arcades in Vancouver, and a fantastic spot to pregame.
That's also what's on the line.
Or watch. Yeah, exactly. We want to
they
go back
win.
there.
We'll have more.
We would like to go back there for the third round. So hoping that we can see and connect with everybody. Congratulations to our contest winner, Blake, on Saturday night.
Really?
Yeah, we had a Blake in attendance, and he won the Greta gift card. Okay. So, PD on right wing with JT Miller and Pius Suter. We think. You asked who the fourth center would be. I guess that's Nils Oman. I would suspect that you'll see Bluger back with, as you call it, OG third line. Lindholm with Joshua and Garland, so going away from OG third line. Bluger with Höglander and Mikheyev, PDG, Oman, and Lafferty as your fourth line. Here's the thing. With Elias Patterson, now more than ever, man. Now more than ever. Been waiting on a classic Elias Patterson game all playoffs long. This is his 13th opportunity. And still waiting on the first multi-point game from Patterson in the Stanley Cup playoffs. He's got 6 points. He's got a goal. Of course, we thought the goal would unlock him. That was in game 2 of the series. He's got points in 2 straight, assists in 2 straight. But tonight's the night for Elias Pettersson. Otherwise, it is going to be, I think, a difficult summer. A summer where a lot of Canucks fans will be asking, are we through to the NHL Final Four if Elias Pettersson plays to his talent?
Well, I think they're already through to the Final Four if that was the case, probably. I think obviously he's the most impactful player. He's the best player that has yet to really find his game in these playoffs. So he's at the top of the list. But two guys that I think have the game a little bit closer to them that might be even more realistic to make impacts. And that's crazy to say given it's Elias Pettersson. But we know how deep into a rut he is right now. How about Dakota Joshua and Connor Garland have a productive night as well? The number 7 looks a little bit like a number 1, so maybe that works for Dakota Joshua, Mr. Game 1, if you will. But as good as they have been in spurts, there hasn't been a lot of consistency from those two guys. And it's been in spurts to the point where, again, it's not far away. Like it's there for them. If they can be contributors in this game, again, it's like the Canucks make a mid-series trade.
And how about Quinn Hughes? He has gone pointless in the last 2 games. Now he's got 3 different games in this postseason where he's had multi-point efforts. Both of them, or all 3 of them, 2 assist nights, but we're still waiting on the first goal from Quinn Hughes in this Stanley Cup playoffs. Had a fantastic season on the goal scoring side of things. Scored 17 this year. It was more than double his career best of 8 previously. Of course, a 92-point guy. And we oftentimes saw him jumping down off that point and attacking the goaltender. It's time for a Quinn Hughes goal. It's also time for Quinn Hughes to play 30 minutes tonight. We have talked
Sure.
about this with Rick Tocchet and this coaching staff through the postseason. There hasn't been much to pick apart with the coaching job with the Vancouver Canucks this season, but early in the series, Chris Knoblauch leaning on his stars to massive degrees. The Canucks haven't done likewise, and in fact, because it was such a blowout in the third period on Saturday, both coaches were able to sort of back off their stars, roll four lines, and not unduly tax their best players for this game 7. You have got no tomorrow if you're Rick Tocchet, Mike Yeo, and Adam Foote. I think you got to see 30 minutes from Hughes tonight. I would want to go down with my best players playing massive minutes. Then that likely means 25 minutes for Miller, Lindholm, and Patterson.
I mean, again, to use the baseball analogy that we've used before here, you don't care who's starting the next game. You blow out the bullpen, you use up all the pitchers that you've got, and you just don't care what happens in the next game because you need to make sure there is a next game. So you lean on the top 6, the newly minted top 6, however that looks for Rick Tocchet, and but hey, both sides are in the same boat now. I mean, remember the Oilers played like there was no tomorrow in Game 6 because for them there might not have been. You get to see that same reaction out of the Vancouver Canucks in this one. Canucks did not have to play with their backs against the wall in game number 6. We're going to see what that pressure does to them and does to a guy like a Quinn Hughes, who can be an absolute maestro from the back end, can run the offense, can run everything when he's on his game. He's not 100% healthy. Nobody is. But you find out what your body can output when you have the back against the wall like you do tonight.
Well, because you have to figure that McDavid, Hyman, Draisaitl, Bouchard are going to be good tonight.
Yep.
So you have to match them. And in the Canucks case, without Boeser, that's more difficult. And it means more onus on Miller, on Hughes, on Patterson. The physicality in this series has gone the Canucks' way. They have out-hit the Edmonton Oilers 252 to 195. That said, Edmonton really picked it up in Game 6. Despite a 4-goal victory, they out-hit the Vancouver Canucks 49 to 39. We'll see where the physicality goes in this series, but of course, discipline more important than physicality. This is the first Game 7 for the Vancouver Canucks in 4 years. You go back to August of 2020, the bubble in Edmonton, Rogers Place against the Vegas Golden Knights in what was round 2 of the Western Conference Final. So this exact same spot, right, Blake? They did win 2 postseason series that year, want to play in against Minnesota. They have been shut out in consecutive Game 7s, lost that game to Vegas 3-0. Of course, lost the 2011 Stanley Cup Final to Boston on home ice 4-0. The last time they have scored in a Game 7 was the Dragon Slayer goal of Alex Burrows.
And that was a low-scoring game, too.
Yeah. It's the first all-Canadian Game 7 since Toronto and Montreal met in 2021. You may remember that was the Habs coming all the way back on Toronto from down 3-1. In front of a limited attended crowd. We were still coming out of the pandemic. Prior to that, all Canadian Game 7s, you got to go back to 2004. Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, Ottawa, a couple of all Canadian series that year. This is the 13th all-time Game 7 for the Vancouver Canucks. They are 6-6 in those Game 7s. And in fact, prior to that neutral site game against Vegas in 2020, the previous 6 games were all on home ice. So this is 7 in a row, if you want to say, on home ice for Game 7s for the Vancouver Canucks, excluding the neutral site game. We all know Burrows scored in 2011. We all know the Brown to Bure goal in 94. Anyone want to take a guess, or have you seen on the other 4 Canucks Game 7 game-winning goal scores?
Mm.
Grady, have you seen this?
Yeah, I got the graphic about to pop.
All right. Trevor Linden in 2003. In 2007. Brendan Morrison in 2003. Cliff Ronning in 1995. And going all the way back to Tom Fergus in 1992 against the Jets. Teams that score first in Game 7 are an extraordinary 148 and 88 in Stanley Cup playoff history. They are 2-0 in 2024. It's a .755 winning percentage. So you score the first goal tonight, historically speaking, you've got a better than 3 in 4 chance of winning the hockey game.
Now in this series, the team that has scored first has only won twice.
It's been
it's been the Oilers.
Right. Home teams in Game 7, all time, 115 and 81, so a 58.7% chance that the home team wins. 1-goal margins, they are typically 1-goal margins and 1 goal in Game 7s. 101 of 196 all time, so 51.5%. About a quarter of the time, Game 7 heads to overtime. 49 all time.
A quarter of the time?
Yeah. Game 49, Game
buckle
7
up,
in Stanley Cup history have gone to overtime. And on the Edmonton side of the ledger, 7-4 all time in Game 7s. Their last game in 2022, they won 2-0 over the Los Angeles Kings. They also have a player who's got some Game 7 history. Matthias Janmark with a hat trick for the Vegas Golden Knights in Game 7 in 2021 against the Minnesota Wild.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, but those 21 playoffs.
Extraordinary.
Those 21 playoffs don't count. They count less than the bubble do.
Yeah. Ian Cole is the most experienced Vancouver Canuck with 8 Game 7s on his resume. He was asked for his 2 cents about everything that goes into a Game 7 and all the nerves that are at play. Take a listen.
I don't think it's ever easy in any regard, ever. But no, listen, I mean, it's always going to be stressful and, to some regards, some, anxiety inducing. But if you can approach it with the right mentality, you can kind of use that as a performance booster, right? It's a very fine line between, hitting that flow state, if you will, and being nervous. So we're going to try to handle it as best we can.
Perfectly said, because as you can imagine that, like, when you're nervous, when you're excited about something, you either fumble it or you clutch up and use that adrenaline for good. So you find out which players can handle it and which players can, because they know what's at stake here. And let's hear that Dakota Joshua clip on the same effect here. I mean, he's very cognizant of the stakes.
It's the biggest moment of most of our lives. You can't really put into words until you're out there what it's going to feel like. But, seize the moment.
The biggest moment in some of our lives. I think he was leaving some wiggle room for the parents in the dressing room, probably, and a couple of good weddings, perhaps.
Right. If the Canucks win, well, this will be the first time in NHL history that all 4 division winners are through to the league's Final Four. They went to a 4-division format in 1974, so it would be 50 years. 3 division winners made it in 2018, Tampa, Washington, and Vegas. Nashville was the one team that missed. As for the Edmonton lineup here this evening, no Adam Henrique. He is out. No lineup changes. Stuart Skinner in goal. McDavid, Draisaitl centering their own lines. And then how about this, Blake Price? Chris Rooney and Jean Hebert are your officials, referees tonight. As JPAT notes, I'm going to bring JPAT in here in a second. Each has worked 1 game in this series. Rooney refed Game 3. That was the game that Edmonton was not too pleased with. You may remember a Bear worked Game 6, so he's going back-to-back. These 2 officials call on average 6.2 and 5.7 penalties or power play opportunities per game, 1.3, 1.2 power play goals per game with these guys. So you have to figure right around 6 power play opportunities here tonight, 3 per side. And the stats hold, someone's going to score a goal. Canucks 4-0-1 with Rooney this year. They are 11-0-1 in the last 3 years when Chris Rooney
False hope. False hope. Like as if that means anything to anything. That is a curiosity. There's no chance that can be relied upon.
Do you want to get to your playoff parlay challenge?
Let's do that. Let's get it
and then we'll have J-Pat coming up, of course. Games.dailyfaceoff.com. We've been telling you about this all postseason long. Each game night winner receives a gift card. Each round winner wins some straight cash. Blake has been playing the Daily Faceoff Parlay, playoff parlay challenge for us daily. What you got tonight, partner?
Well, I've gone with the Vancouver Canucks because of all things, it's just good betting value. So I like that. I went with the Canucks. I went with the under. I think it's going to be, as we just chronicled historically, they are generally lower scoring, tight affairs. So I've gone the under 5.5. First goal, I went with the majority of these games. If I'm picking the Canucks to win, that means Edmonton has to score first. So I've gone with Edmonton there. Highest scoring period, I think it'll be the second. I think the Nerves take over in the first and the third.
I like it.
Quinn Hughes total assists. He has to be a part of this, right? So I went with the over. It's just 1 assist for Quinn Hughes. This one I struggled with a little bit because it's 1.5 for Connor McDavid total assists. I went with the over. I think McDavid's in on the 2 goals that the Oilers get in this game. Zach Hyman, however, is not on the receiving end of that one, so I took him on the under. JT Miller, he's been, especially with Brock Boeser out of the fold, JT Miller clutch goal scoring is a given for me. And then the tiebreaker is the total shots, and I kept it relatively low at 51.
Games.dailyfaceoff.com to play along and to cheer on Blake Price.
Yeah, of course.
Jeff Paterson coming up next.
The Vancouver Canadians are back at the net. Catch fireworks, giveaways, and Friday nooners all spring and summer long. Get your tickets at CanadiansBaseball.com. In a season like this, you never want to miss a single second of what's happening on the ice, and you want to be around your fellow fans, right? Well, Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova, the perfect spot to do so. Hey, if you've got tickets, a great place to pre and post. They've got drink specials every single day. And if you don't have tickets, well, stick around and soak up the atmosphere with all your fellow fans, play all the great video games and air hockey, great air hockey set up as well at Greta Bar YVR. We'll see you there, 50 West Cordova.
Jeff Paterson is our Vancouver Canucks reporter, the host of Rinkwide Vancouver. He's the presentation of the Arnold Palmer Design Whistler Golf Club, now open for play in the 2024 season, playing a rate reviews early in the year. Tee times for any time during 2024 can be booked online right now. And if you have a group of 12 or more, you, the group organizer, plays for free. For more info or to book online, visit whistlergolf.com. Here's J-Pat, who attended the morning availabilities at Rogers Arena. A very optional morning skates when you get down to Game 7, particularly with an early start time. He joins us from the rink now. Jeff, how are you?
Good. The calm before the storm, if you will. Nikita Tolopilo is out on the ice facing some shots, going through a little bit of a workout. That is it, though. In fact, I'm surprised that he took the ice because they had just resurfaced it, and I thought maybe they would just let the fresh sheet of ice sit now until puck drop just after 6 o'clock. But yeah, relatively quiet, all business here, both sides. They know the stakes, and we can talk about it until the puck drops, but ultimately the time for talk is running out here, and we'll see what the actions have to say once they get going tonight.
Boeser, the big topic at morning avails.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the Canucks tried to sort of pawn it off as a maintenance day yesterday, but there was a weird vibe here yesterday. I'm not going to say that I had a hunch that we were going to get the earth bomb that we got, but certainly the news came out after the Canucks had wrapped up. So there was no questions to players or coaches yesterday, and we had to wait. And even today, Rick Tocchet sort of refusing to confirm fully. I mean, yes, acknowledged that they're playing without Brock Boeser, but didn't want to get into the nature, didn't want to get into the details, said that it'll address things down the road. So we're still kind of trying to put the timeline all together because obviously Brock Boeser played on Saturday night, had one of his poorest games of the season. To his credit, came out, faced the media in sweats. There was no indication of any treatment points on him at that stage. Owned his part of the Zach Hyman goal where he was the closest player to Hyman and needed to do a little bit more there. Didn't have a shot on goal, and that is not Brock Boeser hockey, certainly the way that he has performed through the season and the playoffs as well. And so, as I said, if ever there was a guy that could have taken the I needed treatment and wasn't available to the media, so credit to him on that front at the very least, but sometime between leaving Rogers Place, flying home with the Vancouver Canucks and practice yesterday. Obviously, this became a massive issue for the hockey club. So how do you replace a 40-goal scorer? How do you replace the leading goal scorer in the playoffs? Ultimately, you don't, but you hope that in a one-game, winner-take-all, that somebody rises to the occasion, that the group uses Boeser's absence as inspiration here, and that they can find a way to grind out a victory, as most of their wins in these playoffs have been grindy kind of wins. They just have to stick to that game plan and hope they can do it one more time tonight.
You almost wonder if he had symptoms, wanted to tough it out, not knowing what it was. And then obviously after the game said, I really have symptoms. Let's look into this further. Maybe that's what happens. You don't replace him in the lineup. You can replace him on the line with a 40-goal scorer, albeit not one that's going very well, or a virtual 40-goal scorer in Elias Patterson. Is that what the Canucks are forced to do at this point?
Well, I thought you were going to say they're going to bring Andrei Kuzmenko back for
there's mid-series trade. Sure, yeah.
He's in Australia. That's going to be difficult. Time zones and travel,
It'd be exhausted.
Look, Tocchet was asked a question about his lineup, but not really so much about line combinations. We saw some unique ones yesterday at practice, including Vasily Podkolzin skating with Elias Patterson, but Tocchet confirmed that Podkolzin will not play. So he's hoping that the banishment to the press box of both Ilya Mikheyev and Sam Lafferty somehow can produce a spark. We saw a little bit of that. Nils Höglander getting into the lineup and scoring the team's only goal the other night. But I do think that in a Game 7 situation, you won't see much of the fourth line. I don't think this is going to be a case of rolling four lines. So I think you try to figure out early who's going and sort of work around that. I could see a world in which Ilya Mikheyev actually steps into Boeser's spot with Miller and Suter. If that's going to be your shutdown line, Ilya Mikheyev can still give you defensive minutes and moments. You're not replacing 40 goals with a guy that has scored one in his last 60 games, but that would leave the Canucks then with Patterson, Höglander, and perhaps Lafferty, a line that has played together even in this series. So if you're trying to find things that are familiar rather than completely reinvent the wheel, that would allow Lindholm to play with Garland and Joshua, and then your fourth line would be Amon Bluger and PDG. So I don't know, but I could see them starting the game that way. And again, Tocchet just trying to take the temperature of his hockey club, find out who's going, who's into this thing, and who he can lean on. And then from there, maybe go with your 9 best forwards for much of the night. I heard you guys talking about Quinn Hughes. I would expect that he plays an awful lot. I hope that there is some magic left in him, because he has been outproduced, certainly, and I would say outperformed by Evan Bouchard in this series. I'm not here to get into any debate about who's a better defenseman. Quinn Hughes is probably going to win the Norris, but he has not performed at the level that we saw in the regular season when he put up 92 points and controlled games and tilted the ice in the Canucks' favor. Nashville targeted him. The Oilers have finished every check possible on Quinn Hughes, and I do think that there's been a compounding effect there. He's had some moments, but really offensively, the series at 5-on-5 has been a push when Hughes is on the ice, and that is a win every day for the Edmonton Oilers. If Quinn Hughes is, the Canucks outscored their opponents basically 2-1 in the regular season with Quinn Hughes on the ice, and it's just been low event. And that certainly has been the case when Bouchard's been out there, when Matthias Ekholm, the Oilers getting a ton of offense from their back end, and that really hasn't happened for the Vancouver Canucks. So, Quinn knows his value to this team, and the stakes don't get a whole lot higher than this. At home, they played all year to get home ice, to win the division. Let's see if some of those things matter for the Vancouver Canucks this evening.
Which is more valuable, do you think? Experience, not so much in Game 7s, but just playoff experience. The Oilers have more of it. These guys have been here for the last few years. Or the ignorance of not knowing any better, really, which might be in the Vancouver Canucks corner.
I think now across all sports, we see guys that play high level. It doesn't matter. I mean, guys come out of college and win on the PGA Tour right away, right? Like, these guys are battle tested, whatever sport they play. And even hockey players, 13 and 14 and playing year round and academy hockey, they play high level. That's not Game 7 of a Stanley Cup. I get that, but I think every experience is a good experience that you draw on. And so, for me, I think the thing that I really look at in this game is resilience. And I know that's a word that gets used around the Canucks a lot, but it's true. Like, they have bounced back at almost every occasion. Matt, you were talking about consecutive losses. You got to go back almost 2 months. Like, that's an incredible statistic that does say a lot about this group when, it probably didn't have its best on a lot of nights, or travel and they were weary, whatever. They found ways to avoid losing consecutive losses. Artur Silovs has never lost back-to-back games in the National Hockey League. It would be a shame if this was the occasion for him. And even at that, like I look at the goals the other night, I'm not sure that I'm pinning a ton on him. You would have loved him to get a little bit more of the Hyman opportunity, but man, he had just faced Hyman a moment earlier on a grade A chance. Like the Canucks had to do a better job defending in those situations. But I just think if it boils down to one game at home, we saw what they looked like in game 5. They responded to a poor performance in game 4. And not even so much a poor performance, but just the letdown of the way game 4 ended. They responded in game 5, game 6, for whatever reason. And again, guys, like 1-1 after 1, like they were in a great position after 20 minutes as the road team, low event hockey. For all the talk of the Oilers being desperate, it really didn't look or feel that way in the building on Saturday. I mean, the shots were 4-4 through 20 minutes of play, and then the Oilers cranked it up and the Canucks didn't match. So I just think I roll up this season in a ball. 50 wins, 109 points, division title, home ice advantage here. I need this game to look and feel a lot more like game 5 did when the Canucks took over and tilted the ice than what we saw on Saturday in Edmonton.
Yeah, it was a terrific road period for them. Period 1 in Edmonton, and then everything fell apart. When we talk about resilience, Jeff, the other thing is the last time they lost 2 in a row was Casey DeSmith was in the goal, right? You remember, like that's when we were starting to get to the point where Casey DeSmith, not accustomed to playing all those games instead of Thatcher Demko, and it finally caught up to them. So no, resilience, 21 games on steroids in terms of what this Vancouver Canucks team has achieved. Stuart Skinner, I think the most disappointing part of game 6 for me, Jeff, is that you had a goaltender who went back in the crease, surely with his confidence rattled a little bit, didn't test him a whole lot. They're averaging 21 shots per game in the postseason. What's a good number for them tonight in terms of shots on goal?
I guess I'd look at 30. I mean, I don't have grandiose expectations of 40 or 45 shots. That's just not the way this team is built and the way it's playing, and certainly without a 40-goal guy in Brock Boeser in the lineup. But I'm with you, Matt. On the ground in Edmonton, I can tell you, leading into the game on Saturday, and even just in the media room before the game, like everybody was talking about Skinner and how is he going to respond, and what an opportunity, and he is their guy, and Chris Knoblauch empowered him to be their guy. And then the Canucks get 2 first-period power plays with McDavid and Draisaitl in the penalty box at that. Like, you would have thought maybe that was a little bit of juice for the Vancouver Canucks, 2 minutes each that they didn't have to play. The Canucks would have liked it to have been less time than that in the penalty box for those guys, but didn't turn out that way, but certainly didn't test him and just eased him in. And, really, when you look back at this series, the same goes for Calvin Pickard in game 4. Game 4 and game 6, goaltending was the hot-button issue on the Edmonton Oilers side. And in both of those periods, the Canucks had 4 shots on goal. So test the guy, make him make some saves. Like, this is a big moment for everybody, but it may not be a bigger moment for anybody than Stuart Skinner here. And, I think for the Canucks, and there's a fine line, guys, at this level, trying to pick corners and beat goaltenders. The Canucks had 15 shots on goal. They had 25 missed shots the other night. Mm-hmm. And a shot on goal may not result in a goal, but maybe it results in a rebound. Maybe a puck drops in the feet of Stuart Skinner and somebody's there to jam home a rebound. But if you're missing and it's rattling off the backboards, and Tocchet talked about this prior to the series, like they can't afford that because Connor McDavid feeds off that. If pucks go, rim around the boards and out to center and in transition, but they could have bumped their shot total if a few more of those 25 had actually hit the target. And again, the deeper this game goes, the closer it is. The pressure mounts. Like, pressure does funny things, even to the elite athletes. And I just want, if the Canucks don't win the hockey game, I don't want it to be that they go meekly into the night with another 15-shot performance. So
right.
They know it. And JT, you played the clip. Like, he recognizes that, high volume isn't necessarily in their DNA, and they've won a bunch of games. They won a game with 12 shots on goal in Nashville in game 3. But it's a dangerous way to play as well, because you up your odds of scoring the more pucks you ultimately put on the net.
Yeah, killer instinct has been missing from the Canucks a couple of times in this postseason already.
Canuck players
see that.
Canuck players aren't haunted by previous game 7s, but Canuck fans are.
Sure.
And
big distinction. Yeah.
And I think that's maybe some of the vibe we're feeling and hearing from people, guys, is that they don't want you chronicled the game 7 shutouts of late.
The last 2. Vegas and Boston.
Like, I hope for Canuck fans' sakes, Jeff, that they don't have to sit through one of those.
Please.
Yeah, I'm with you. I got to go back to the Burrows goal, the last Game 7 goal scored by a Vancouver Canucks. So that's going back in history. Certainly, I mean, it's going to be a challenge. It is, whether it's at 5-on-5 or, Brock Boeser was their leading power play goal scorer as well. And what does the power play look like? I would assume that Garland goes back in there, but he's not replacing Brock Boeser. He's not a shooter. He's actually had a pretty quiet playoff for him production-wise, just 2 goals as well. So there's a guy maybe that, you look to. We know that he's elevated. He scored a big one in Game 1 of this series, obviously. Does he have one more left in him? But, there's just such a trickle down when you take a player of Boeser's stature out of the lineup that, it's not even just a 5-on-5. It could have impact on power play that's been awfully quiet here, had its opportunities. It's funny. Special teams were a huge factor early in this series, and now nobody can buy a power play goal, and that's credit to the Canucks penalty killers. But man, doesn't that feel like borrowed time as well? That you can hold the Oilers power play at bay for 10 in a row, but if they get that 11th opportunity, you're on the edge of your seat. It's that good, obviously. So hopefully the Canucks haven't played all of their penalty killing cards to this stage in the series, and they've got a little bit more magic left there because you're playing with fire. If you put this Oiler team on power play, and I would just think that the fact that they've gone a little quiet, they recognize what they're capable of when they get power plays, if they can draw penalties. So, discipline's going to be so important. I expect, guys, I think Game 6 was the anomaly, and, just how one-sided it was. I fully anticipate that this game will go the way that the series has for the most part, and that it's going to be tight, and it wouldn't surprise me if, it's a tied hockey game going to the third period, and a 7-game series basically gets boiled down to the 20 minutes of hockey.
All right. I'm going to ask you, Blake, as well, and I'll pick third here, but give me a Canuck player we'll be talking about tomorrow. Jeff, who can you see rising to the occasion here?
I look at Elias Lindholm. I just think he was brought in to perform in the playoffs, and he has. And he's got the history, obviously, in the Battle of Alberta. He's been really good in this series, whether it's been in the matchups or not. And that line, they've had some moments in the Nashville series and earlier in this Edmonton series as well. So, maybe they miss one right shot guy that can produce some offense, but maybe there's a little on the stick of Elias Lindholm, and we'll see if he can be the guy for the Canucks tonight.
Good question. Is he going in the Boeser spot then on the first?
I don't think so.
No?
On the first power play, perhaps. Yeah. Again, that's with no morning skate, and they didn't run through power play at practice. So, there are some mysteries as we work our way closer to game time here. But I would think that he'll be in the bumper, certainly. And, he's been around that net front on the power plays, had some success there. So maybe
so we're looking at Garland elevating to the unit then, I would guess.
That's my hunch, unless they plant Dakota Joshua in front of the net. I mean, that would be the other option, I guess.
Passed through my mind too, yep.
Right.
I'll go Hughes. I'll be unoriginal, just because I think he, unlike Patterson, which is a real deep cut, I think he's still got so much to give. Hughes does, and I think he digs deep on the health side of things.
Well, you've left me both with the two guys that I was debating towards.
Okay,
between. We'll hear about JT Miller in our Bet365 selection. So I'll go with Arturs Silovs. I mean, if you win a Game 7 against an Edmonton Oilers team with 4 of the best offensive players going, stands to reason to me that Arturs Silovs would have had him a game. So I will go with the rookie Latvian goaltender.
I'd be a bronze statue.
Hey,
I think regardless, though, Matt, I mean, they need him to have that game, and then it's a question of can they support the offense at the other end to squeeze this thing out.
I just wonder if tonight's the night where he does have to stand on his head a little bit. More than we've seen.
Vanny Sartini would like to weigh in, guys. He was asked to practice for the Whitecaps. He says 4-2 at the end. We score an empty netter. He lamented Boeser. He said that's my favorite player. Tonight's going to be the revenge of Patterson. 2 goals. One JT Miller, one for Teddy Bluger because he's my friend.
Well, we got to find out what Coach Campbell thinks in Kamloops.
Yes, that's right.
As well. We're surveying all quarters. Jeff, marvelous stuff. Thank you for this. Of course, we'll be watching, listening to Rink Wide later this evening. Enjoy Game 7, my friend.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's been a terrific series. It's kind of been, I think, everything that we hoped it would be with the storylines and the drama and the fan bases and everything else. So one more.
This is what he lives for. That's Jeff Paterson, our Canucks reporter, the host of Rink Wide Vancouver. They will be going seconds after the final horn tonight
Well, a hell of a
alongside
show
Irfan.
regardless.
Yeah, with Irfan Gaffar, who, of course, broke the story on Brock Boeser. Okay, time now for our Bet365 bets of the day, the segment presentation of Bet365, proud partner of Sekeres Price. JT Miller's been such a horse for the Vancouver Canucks this year. You have to like him to score tonight. If the Canucks are going to be successful, I think he's got to be a part of the equation. He goes off at plus 170 as an anytime goal scorer. If you like him to score the game's first goal, and I think I like him to score the game's first goal, that's paying plus 800.
First goal. Wow. Very bold. I'm going anytime goal scorer.
Okay.
For another guy that would get a bronze statue if this happened. It's been a while since we heard from him in these playoffs. Nikita Zadorov.
Oh, wow.
Anytime goal scorer.
Interesting one.
Shooting for the Stars of plus 800 anytime for Zadorov to pull off more of his heroics. Hey, Skinner's back in goal. He's done it.
Bet365, open an account today. Use code VANBONUS, all together, all one word. Bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. We will be back to regularly scheduled programming and procedures on Tuesday. Enjoy the game. Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.